The sirens pierced the calm suburban afternoon as Officer Mark Hastings raced to the high school. A veteran first responder, Mark had seen his share of emergencies, but the call that came through his radio chilled him. Shots fired at Brookline High. With his heart pounding, he arrived at the scene to chaos. Students running, parents crying, and the distant echo of gunfire. Mark's training kicked in as he coordinated with other first responders to secure the area and tend to the injured. He spotted a student, pale and wide-eyed, clutching a wound on his leg. With practiced efficiency, he applied a tourniquet and tried to offer comforting words, his voice barely masking his own fear. Melissa Grant, a beloved history teacher, had heard the first shot ring out during her third-period class. Instinctively, she locked her classroom door and huddled her students into a corner farthest from it. As they sat in terrified silence, Melissa's hands shook. She whispered reassurances, but her mind was miles away, contemplating what horrors could be happening just outside. It wasn't until much later, as she was escorted out by a SWAT team, that the full scope of the tragedy hit her, a tragedy that would keep her awake many nights to come. Jacob, once the best friend of the shooter, found himself grappling with an avalanche of emotions. They had shared so many moments together. How could he not have seen this coming? Guilt gnawed at him, morphing into anger and confusion. Other students viewed him with suspicion, and whispers followed him wherever he went. His own identity felt fractured, caught between the person he was and what his best friend had turned into. The event shattered not just his friendships, but his sense of self. Laura, a freshman who had just moved to town, had been in the shooter's direct line of sight when chaos erupted. With a split-second decision, her classmate Alex had pushed her aside, taking a bullet meant for her. Laura found herself grappling with survivor's guilt. Every hallway in the school a reminder of Alex's bravery and sacrifice. She visited him in the hospital, wishing she could find the words to thank him, but all she could do was hold his hand as tears streamed down her face. The aftermath of the tragedy left indelible marks on the community. Officer Mark Hastings went home that night, his uniform stained with blood and a heavy heart he would carry long after he changed clothes. He started attending therapy, something he had always been too proud to do before, realizing he could no longer bear the burden alone. Melissa Grant took a leave of absence, her once passionate teaching now hollowed out by the trauma. She devoted herself to activism, becoming a voice for stricter gun laws, hoping to prevent this nightmare for future generations. Jacob withdrew into himself, finding solace only in his art. His drawings turned darker, more complex, encompassing the chaos that had upended his world. Through counseling and the support of a few steadfast friends, he began to piece his life back together, though the cracks would always remain. Laura, haunted by what-ifs and could-have-beens, found a new purpose in kindness. She joined student organizations focused on mental health, channeling her pain into projects that aimed to foster understanding and support for others like her.